Whether it's around the country or your town or county, decisions are being made every day that impact real people and real communities. Welcome to the Rural View, where we open the window for you to view Wisconsin farmers and rural residents and get a glimpse into the challenges they face. And welcome you to the Rural View. Our guest today is Jason Mugnaini. I guess first thing I had to do was learn how to pronounce your last name.
I nailed it. Perfect.
Tell us a bit about your job and what you do here at Wisconsin Farmer.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. And so I'm the Executive Director of Government Relations, which is just a fancy title saying that I'm the lobbyist. Lobbying, I do a lot of things from federal, state, local, political, and, that's kind of always been my background. I've been in politics for close to 20 years now, working in the state house and state senate, working on campaigns, which is kind of how I found myself at Farm Bureau. And I've been here for about 3 years, working in the government relations department with my team. We have people focused on federal affairs, local affairs, state affairs, and then even our political arm with the Volunteers for Agriculture PAC. So, it's been a great opportunity for me to kind of hone my skills and my knowledge in agriculture, and lets me do what I love, and that's supporting farmers, supporting agriculture here in the state of Wisconsin.
So, what's the difference between working with a representative and working at representatives representing Farm Bureau?
It is different when you're working for a legislator. And I used to work for State Senator Rob Coles from Green Bay, Shawano area. You're focused on that one specific area, the interests that that district has. You're making sure that your legislator is, focused on the things, he's getting your meetings right. He's got the messages that he needs, the bills that he's pushing, support his district. But it's similar but different. Now we're working with industry, statewide organization of members. And, with Farm Bureau, it's a member-driven organization. It's farmer-led. We have a playbook that's decided on by our membership through their policies and things that they pass. So we have a little bit of a different dichotomy, and we have to make sure that for an organization like Farm Bureau, that we're putting agriculture and the voice of farmers in the right place, in the right room, at the right time, and maintaining our influence. And the work that we're doing is not only beneficial to our members, but beneficial to agriculture and industry as a whole.
Perhaps you can explain a bit how exactly your priorities are set. This is what you take to the legislature.
Sure. So, the thing that's kind of interesting is that, that the farmers, they don't really have time to read through legislative policies and things like that. So we have this process where information comes to us. They are the ones who are setting the policy for, Wisconsin Farm Bureau. The policy resolution process at the local level, county farm bureaus, members are proposing policies every year, and those make their way from, the county level up to the state. Some even make it all the way up to the national and American Farm Bureau policy book. And that serves as a playbook for us. It tells us what's important to our members. A couple of years ago, it was really hot on solar issues, and we started working on those to try to improve them. The last couple of years, it's been land issues and beginning farmer issues. So we take that information and we try to boil it down and start working with policymakers and legislators to find ways to take those policies that came from the countryside and the farm gate all the way into the state house and the federal house, and then make action items out of them. It's really been an interesting, it's really a great way to show that we're a grassroots organization, farmer-led, members up. And, so when we're doing that work, I'm not pushing my own agenda. I have the same, ability to affect my own personal beliefs as everybody in the voting booth. But when we're in Madison, we're in Washington, D.C., I'm carrying the voice of thousands of Farm Bureau members who have told us what matters most to them and their communities.
And I think that term grassroots is something that makes Farm Bureau really unique. I guess, do you want to explain a little bit more about just how we coined that term and how we really do live that term every day? It makes us unique. It makes us different compared to a lot of other organizations.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's it's in our name. We're Wisconsin Farm Bureau Federation. That federation is really what gives us the grassroots effort. It's county farm bureaus from all around the state. It's people from all commodities, all pieces of agriculture, be it agribusiness, dairy, row crop, livestock. It's all of those people kind of coming together and developing what is really a pathway forward to improve agriculture and things like that. But again, it's policies and priorities come from members up. It's not a top-down thing where you see a lot of other organizations around the state and the country kind of dictating to the people that are in their organization what they're doing. It's the opposite from Wisconsin Farm Bureau, and that's important. It tells me what people are seeing, what people know, what's affecting them, and that's why we've been taking ourselves so seriously on some of these policies that are impacting people at the farm gate.
Yeah, I think our members are just a critical piece of that. And I think when we talk about advocacy in general, why is it so important for farmers specifically to be engaged in the political process? I think in this day and age, it's something that some find daunting and maybe are not very excited about. But why is it so critical, especially right now?
Oh, politics, policy in agriculture, it's about survival. Decisions in Madison, decisions in Washington, they find their way onto every farm in this country, regardless of whether or not we like it. Rules about livestock, water use, land use, taxes, commodity markets, new opportunities, technology, all of those things are political decisions. And if farmers aren't at the table, and I use an idiom that I've heard how many times, if farmers aren't at the table, they're on the menu. So decisions can't get made without them. We need farmers to be involved. And getting involved doesn't mean you have to be down in Madison every week and talking to legislators every week. It's about making sure that your elected officials know your story, your farm, how their choices affect your farm, engaging in moments when organizations like Farm Bureau or some of our partners within the Wisconsin Ag Coalition say we need to get involved. It may not necessarily be Farm Bureau. It might be the cheesemakers need support, or it might be the food processors or the soybeans, corn, all of those organizations. We try to work as a team within agriculture, but when those organizations say speak up, when your neighbors say it's time to speak up, when your community says it's time to speak up, it's time. Because again, it's not about whether or not you want to be engaged in politics. Politics is already engaged in your life in agriculture. It's a major driver in the affordability of inputs, land transactions, the use of land. It's critical. So for agriculture, we only represent about 2% of the population by today's standards. You go back 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that was 30, 40% of the population was engaged in agriculture at least a generation away. Now it's much more disconnected. So we have to fight even harder. The people that are in that 2% have to step up even harder. But we try to make it easy through Wisconsin Farm Bureau by getting engaged, doing actions. Recently we had some rules that were proposed by the Department of Agriculture regarding livestock. We did a whole call to action of our membership to start talking about these and the negative effects that they could have, not only at the farm level, but throughout the entire supply chain and potentially destabilizing, the livestock markets within the Midwest region. So those types of moments where we say, speak up, talk out, community build, that's really what politics is about. And especially with a grassroots organization like Farm Bureau, it is about survival and making sure that those messages are well received.
You look on the state level, of course, you have a diminished representation in rural Wisconsin, and certainly more so on the federal level. What can we do to keep the farm voice, to keep agriculture's voice heard at those levels?
Well, there's no shortage of ways to advocate, but there are definitely some smarter ways to go about doing that. The best place to start, in my opinion, is at your county farm bureau. That's the most local way that you can get engaged with, politics and policy driving. It's where you can connect with other farmers, learn about what's happening, shape policy positions through the policy development process that we talked about. But, also through Farm Bureau and Wisconsin Farm Bureau, you can sign up for our policy updates. That gives people kind of a clear idea of what's going on. We share information through those periodically. We say what's moving through the Capitol, how you can plug in, participate if that's something that is interesting to you. But from there, the most effective way to, build a relationship is to invite your elected officials to a county farm bureau meeting, call them, tell them what's happening, saying, hey, I heard about this. This is concerning to me. ask about information, attend one of their listening sessions, develop a relationship, come to Ag Day in the Capitol. It's happening in January 21st this year. That's a great first step that you can take. It's a way that you don't have to be in the driver's seat that day coming up with all the information. We'll set you up. We'll give you the policy briefings, share about agriculture, share what's happening in policy in Wisconsin. But you get to go and meet with your legislators, get to know who they are, share a little bit about where you're from, give them your contact information so that when they know that you came, that you took time out of your busy schedule, you shared your business, your farm, your livelihood, your voice carries a lot of weight. I'm the lobbyist. I'm in the Capitol all the time. They're sick of hearing about me. They don't need to necessarily ask me all the questions about what's happening at home. They want to hear from farmers. They want to hear from people engaged in agriculture. So it's really about showing up and talking. But there's so many ways to get engaged. And if public speaking or taking time out of your schedule to come down to Madison isn't for you, one of the most powerful ways that we can get involved, and one of the things that we utilize regularly to maintain influence and maintain support and have one-on-one time with legislators is through our Volunteers for Agriculture PAC, our political action committee. People say, oh, well, it's money in politics and things like that, but it's not about politics. It's not always about money in politics. It's about influence and supporting agriculture. So if that's something that you're capable of doing, every donation, no matter the size, it all strengthens our efforts within agriculture as a united front to go and share our message, support candidates, support, the messages that we need to give to voters about the things that are going to impact rural Wisconsin. So there's no shortage of ways to protect your farm, your community, and advocate for agriculture.
I think Ag Day at the Capitol is a great thing to drop because as someone who's been there many times as a staff, it's just that day's so impactful. It's just one to really feel like our legislators listen when farmers show up because they know how hard it is for them to step away from the farm. And I was just going to ask the follow-up question too of, I think a lot of times people think when they're reaching out to the legislators, is it even worth it? Is it going to have an impact? And you've worked in an office before. Like, can you share some of the we do listen stories, just to share some of those impacts of, yes, people are listening when you contact.
Well, yeah, the staff and legislators want to be helpful. They wouldn't go through an election cycle and put themselves out there and run for office if they didn't care. If they didn't want to do anything, they wouldn't be there trying to help and make change and affect change. So, when I was in the legislature, someone would call and say, here's a challenge I'm working with. I'd fight for them. I'd be an advocate in the Capitol, but they need to know what they need to do to be able to do that. Be that support a certain piece of legislation, be that deal with a constituent issue. There's always a full plate of issues that they're dealing with at any one time. But when somebody from your local community contacts you, and especially if 2, 3, 4, 5 people start contacting you on a similar issue, that's like a crisis. Like, oh my gosh, we have to get in and get engaged on this immediately. And that just shows that the level of advocacy, the power that somebody from a local community can have, especially a leader from one of those communities, our county farm bureau presidents, vice presidents, people who are, patriarchs on their farm. They say, when somebody calls and says, hey, I'm a 3rd, 4th generation farmer and, I do this in this community, and somebody can look on a map and say, yep, that community's in my district, that kind of changes things. Great opportunities for us to be able to affect change within agriculture with a little bit of pressure, a little bit of effort. But, that face-to-face meeting at Ag Day, and Ag Day is one of my favorite days in the year. I love Ag Day in the Capitol.
Not biased at all.
No, I do. It's a great way to just, hundreds of farmers coming together to meet with their lawmakers. And the day kicks off, with an issue briefing. We have a keynote speaker, typically hear from some legislators. Last year we had a great opportunity to kind of have some outdoor pieces. And then we actually kind of took over the rotunda. We did it with a permit, but we had, agriculture on display. Really, really letting lawmakers and staff see the full scope of agriculture within, the state of Wisconsin. We're a $116.3 billion industry. We're not number one of the most. And we also have that heritage of being an agricultural state. So it's, things like that, include displays, interactive exhibits in the Capitol, seeing the strength of agriculture, the unity of agriculture in the Capitol. So Ag Day in the Capitol is as much a day about letting legislators know about the issues as it is, a show of force and support for this industry and the interest that we have to come and show up and make sure that they know that this is important to us.
A number of years back, I had the opportunity to travel to Washington with the young farmers in their visit with representatives in Congress, the Senate. Great experience. And they were very welcoming.
Yeah, they want you to be there. When they want to meet with constituents, they're meeting with people all the time. But when there's somebody from their community that's come all the way across the country to share an issue with them, they listen. Like I said, they're there to try to help and try to affect change. But, we have to make sure that we have quality message, that we're consistent, that we're sharing things that we need to do. People don't want to show up and, get yelled at. They turn off right away. So, that's a great way that we can segue into something like your county farm bureau, your state farm bureau, American Farm Bureau, some of the other organizations, if you're in row crop, corn growers, soybeans, if you're in livestock, cattlemen's, pork, if you're in dairy, some of the dairy organizations, they make it easy. They'll help you do this. If you want to get engaged, reach out to one of them, reach out to me, give me a call. I'm happy to chat with anybody. And I'll put you in a spot where you can help affect change. That's really what it's about, is making sure that we're putting our members in a spot where they can be successful and push the policies that came from the ground up into actual results.
Everyone's being inundated with information about all the different things, pros and cons and so on. Just give us kind of a brief primer on what do you see as the key issues facing agriculture right now?
Yeah, there's always a full plate of issues in agriculture. That's
Not
never,
that much.
we don't have that much time. We've been working through a process on some livestock fee increases at the Department of Agriculture. That's really been a priority because that's going to hit us locally with some of those fee increases. And some of these fee increases are 1,700% increases on livestock markets, dealers, truckers. That's really, your acute, we need to stop the bleeding thing right now. Another big one that we're seeing both federally and at the state level is healthcare. We've seen healthcare subsidies kind of shift back down the income stream. We've seen the cost of healthcare for farmers be kind of a moving target. And we're working on legislation to try to bring Farm Bureau health plans here to Wisconsin, something that is a little bit more attainable, a little bit cheaper, more affordable, but also isn't going to have wild fluctuations year to year based on how successful your business is going to be. People have a good year and they're penalized the next year with high healthcare costs, eating up your income. This is something that we think we can give farm families another option, coverage that doesn't fluctuate as much, is a little bit more tailored to the needs of agriculture. But, on a larger scale, farmland preservation, land use debates, those have been really ramping up as, development pressures are growing. We're seeing things in the countryside we've never seen before, and it's moving fast. Solar, urban development, and even now some of these big, large data centers that are coming into the state of Wisconsin that are going to need a ton of energy, perpetuates more solar use, perpetuates more urban development. We know that there's a tidal wave of farmland transfers that's going to be coming in the next, 15, 20 years. We know that. That's a very challenging discussion. And as that farmland has to change hands, we need to make sure that it's changing hands and staying in agricultural production. That next generation of farmers, it's time to step up, start going through that, working on, farmland transition, succession planning, making sure that beginning and young and expanding farmers have those opportunities to, farm. You talked about our young farmers going to Washington, D.C., to a T. I think probably every single one of them has some form of off-farm employment or a spouse that has off-farm employment. So now you've got healthcare, fees, death and taxes. Those things are going to continue to be a problem, but, we have to make sure that we're putting ourselves not only in a position now to stop the bleeding on immediate needs, but also that we're, looking into the future and making sure that there's generational opportunities for our young members so that they can take on and be successful in agriculture as well. So this is important, but on these full slate of issues, we need to have people coming and supporting agriculture through, be it through the VFA pack, be it through coming to testify. A few weeks or months ago, we had probably a dozen Farm Bureau members in Madison testifying on 3 different things at once. Be it sustainable aviation fuel or livestock fees or dairy changes or dairy rules. There's always an opportunity to do this, but there's, with technology, there's good ways to do it from home, and through the VFA, there's great ways to support us in maintaining our influence and support. So, right now, those top issues are going to be, the immediate needs of healthcare, impacting fees. But further down the line, we have to start having some real conversations about what the future of agriculture is going to look like. What markets are we going to be participating in? What does, dairy look like in 5, 10, 15 years? So we're starting those conversations now and getting people engaged today so that we can have that success and change in the future.
I think a lot of times, on a lot of these issues, it seems like we're being very reactive. And one of the questions I have for you is, how can we be more proactive? How can farmers and rural residents just be proactive in being aware of issues? I mean, we've seen a lot of local issues bubble up. It's very much a happening thing across the state. But like, what should people be watching for? How can they be just engaged at the local level?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought this up because sometimes the biggest changes don't come from Madison, don't come from Washington. They come from your own county, your own township. We've been dealing with a lot of local ordinances that local governments are either being coerced or concerned because they don't have that agricultural background. They don't know what the realities are on the landscape. And they're being reactionary to information that's being told to them, and they're imposing ordinances on things like zoning. Maybe there's a big development that's coming in and they want to change, what has traditionally been agricultural zoning into like rural residential. Or they are looking at CAFO siting or manure storage ordinances. And, sometimes on those collar communities between the suburbs and some rural areas, those kind of land challenges can be easily passed. These things are being decided on in small meetings with low turnout, with not a lot of engagement. So our members also need to be encouraged to keep an eye on their town board, keep an eye on their agendas, keep an eye on their county boards and agendas. And if they see something brewing, reach out to us. We want our members to be the ones who are driving these issues, especially at the local level. But Wisconsin Farm Bureau is here to help, organize, provide resources, information, be a sounding board. And I need to make sure that people at the local level know that they're not standing alone. They maybe have to be the ones that are driving that issue, but we can provide a lot of support to them to make sure that they're armed with the right tools, that they've got the right information, and that they're organizing their community effectively so that people can see that it's not just 1 or 2 people coming up to the meetings and complaining about an issue. It's an industry, it's a community, it's the lifeblood of the economy in that rural area. So those are really big challenges that we have to continue to look at, especially at the local side, and that requires engagement. There's 1,700 towns and 72 counties. We can't be everywhere all at once. So it is a lot about members paying attention at those local levels. And, we can provide the support and help that they need to be able to be effective. But yeah, those are tough issues.
And it's important for those farmers, those in agriculture, to be involved in those boards, to be involved in those committees.
100%. You go back, a couple decades or even a couple of years ago, those town boards were traditionally comprised of farmers. Now it's not necessarily that way. It's a lot more retirees. It's a lot more people who might have just moved to that community that are trying to affect change. Well, the right to farm law doesn't protect you against impacts to your business from your local government, just from nuisance lawsuits. People don't understand that. So, we have to get people back engaged in that. And if you're a young farmer who's, looking to be engaged, run for local office. It's not a commitment that is taken lightly, but a couple meetings a month can really have an impact on your local economy and drive some really great things forward. So, that's something that we want to encourage people as we're doing a lot of our leadership efforts within Wisconsin Farm Bureaus. Run for local office. If you want more information about it, reach out to us. We can help you with that too.
Really emphasizing reach out to us. But I think that is like the first step. When we talk about your Farm Bureau membership and the value that you can get out of your membership, I think that's really the first step in engagement. Like, you guys need to know if there's an issue, you're always happy to help. You know, I don't think you really have a preferred communication method. It's call, text, email, however you can find.
Carrier pigeon,
yes.
smoke signal, however you need to get a hold of us, we can
Right.
figure out Morse code, whatever it is. It's just a matter of, taking the effort to do something to contact us. If you look up your local county, all the farm bureaus, county presidents' phone numbers are listed. If you look up Wisconsin Farm Bureau, our website pops right up. We can help get resources out into the countryside that need them if they're dealing with an issue. If they're dealing with a state issue, we can point you in the right direction. We can help you support us and support yourselves in that way. Even at the federal level, I mean, right now, there's a lot of discussions about potential farm payments as we're starting to hear that heat up. Right now there's no soybeans under contract with China. Input costs are rising. We're going to feel that in short order. And, some comments to your federal representatives about the real impacts and outcomes of some of those things. And it's going to be becoming a priority in the future. So we need to speak up on it. And that's really what it comes down to. Advocacy is about speaking up, supporting the efforts that are supporting you. And that's why, an organization like Wisconsin Farm Bureau, with your membership, you don't only just get, 20% on Choice and Wyndham hotels and 30% off an Avis and budget rental car. Those are the ones that stick out in my mind. But it comes with the advocacy and support of your business. Those types of things, donations to the VFA aren't just a political donation. That's an investment in your business going into, difficult times of farmland transfers, tumultuous situations, volatility globally. Those types of pieces that help maintain influence for these types of organizations is critical. And it helps make your voice count.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good wrap up spot. I mean, I feel like if we start diving off into some of these topics, we'll be here all day, but we can definitely have you back to talk about a few of those in the future. But anything else to wrap up?
No, it was great to chat with you guys today. And again, if there's ever anything that you need help with, and be that, permit issues, local issues, state issues, just reach out to Wisconsin Farm Bureau. We'll help you walk you through the process, and we'll be an advocate for you.
Well, thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
Wisconsin Farm Bureau is a unified voice for agriculture. When decisions are made that affect our Farm Bureau makes sure I have a seat at the table. Wisconsin Farm Bureau is shaping policy, developing members, and engaging consumers. I know my concerns are heard, and I can stay focused on what matters most: feeding, clothing, and fueling my community.